in this edition of Daily Trail Markers, early voting for the 2020 Democratic primary is officially underway in Texas. Voters can cast their ballots in the state between now and February 28th, which means many Texans will be voting before results are in from Nevada and South Carolina. Texas has 228 delegates. That is the third largest delegate count of the primary season. The most recent poll conducted by the University of Texas and the Texas Tribune show Senator Bernie Sanders leading in the state. He's followed by former Vice President Joe Biden and Senator Elizabeth Warren. The last chance for Texas residents to vote in the primary will be on Super Tuesday, coming up on March 3rd. CBS News 2020 campaign reporter Adam Brewster joins us now from Houston. Hi, Adam. So what is the significance of early voting in Texas? Is it a big deal there?
In 2016, you had about a third of the Democrats vote early, and in the 2018 primary last year, you had about half do so. So we'll see how many exactly, do that this year. The state party says they've seen good numbers so far from the early numbers that have come out. But you hit it in the intro, is that you are going to potentially have a third to a half of people voting. Maybe they'll vote after Nevada and what they see there, but people are going to be voting, some of them, before they see results from Nevada and South Carolina. The potential to be voting for a candidate who then, after those two races, is really struggling, or perhaps somebody takes off who you were really thinking about supporting, but you didn't think that they had the momentum coming out of Iowa and New Hampshire. That's the interesting wrinkle that comes here, is people voting without knowing exactly where those candidates will be standing when it comes to Super Tuesday 2 weeks from today.
So what are Texas voters telling you on the ground there then? Are they saying that's their strategy? They want to wait and see who comes out ahead after Nevada and South Carolina, or do they say, I've found my person and I'm sticking to it?
I think it depends who you talk to. Some people, I was talking to some Senator Sanders supporters over the weekend, they know their guy. And a lot of them were saying they were planning to vote early, although one person said, this is my first time voting and I want to be a part of the action on Super Tuesday. And, that person, I was telling that some Democratic officials, that person might be waiting in line for quite some time. There are some long ballots here in Texas, so people are encouraged to get out there and vote early to try to reduce some of the lines. Harris County, which is where Houston is, has one of the longest ballots in the country, and there's no more straight ticket voting here. Others did say they are watching the early states to see where candidates stand after Nevada and South Carolina. It's a different electorate that's going to be voting in these next two contests compared to what we saw in Iowa and New Hampshire. The other big thing that I hear here in Texas that I didn't hear a lot about in Iowa, of course, was former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg. He was kind of an abstract in Iowa, wasn't competing there. Nobody was really focused on him because they had so many other candidates at hand. Here, he is very much a part of the conversation, whether there are the supporters who think that he is the best candidate, can win, who like his experience, who like his track record, think he can take on President Trump, or the people who do not like him, quite frankly, because of the way that they believe he's just trying to shower the race with money. And there are people who have questions about his record, especially when it comes to stop and frisk. I spoke to several Sanders supporters who said they would have a hard time voting for Michael Bloomberg, and some said they simply couldn't, even if he were the nominee, partly because of that record.
And so now, would you say he has a major presence in Texas? And how did Bloomberg go about achieving that there?
He has a huge presence in Texas. And I mean, from a paid staffing standpoint, it's really unrivaled. Their campaign has 160 staffers on the ground. I mean, they have hundreds of people spread across the country. They are, it is an unprecedented type of operation here. It's an operation that we saw campaigns setting up in Iowa because they were there for 8 months. Of course, Michael Bloomberg has just, money is not an issue for him. So you have 160 staffers, you have 17 offices. And when you have that, you're able to get outside of just the Dallas, Houston, Austin, San Antonio, El Paso areas and set up where voters may not have much contact with presidential campaigns in some of the smaller towns around Texas. And what cannot be understated is just the advertisements. Everyone you talk to has seen a Michael Bloomberg advertisement, whether it's a pre-roll advertisement on YouTube, whether it's advertisements on TV. I was reading the Houston Chronicle endorsed Senator Amy Klobuchar the other day, and the ads on the side of the screen were for Michael Bloomberg. His presence is felt very much so. And I spoke to one person today who said he decided to vote for Michael Bloomberg partly because he had seen Joe Biden not doing well in the early states. He's seen the ads, and he believes Michael Bloomberg is the best candidate for Democrats, and he cast his vote for Michael Bloomberg today.
All right, so let's talk about some of those other frontrunners, because Senator Sanders is leading in the most recent Texas polls, even though former Vice President Joe Biden was in the lead for quite some time. How has Sanders managed to improve his polling, and do you see support for Biden slipping in Texas?
So the question, to address the Biden question, I think there are some people who are waiting to see what happens in Nevada and South Carolina and holding out. The Biden campaign has talked about their ability to connect with minority voters there. Iowa and New Hampshire overwhelmingly white. They seem to be projecting an aura of confidence coming out of those states, and that could turn things for him here. There are a lot of people here who like him and who, he had a lot of support in the beginning, and they tout their endorsements that they have, including from a lot of the Texas Democratic congressional delegation. As for Senator Sanders, they have a huge network of volunteers, something that they highlight all over the country, and believe that network of volunteers is unrivaled because they are going out and doing things that organizers would be doing. The staffing, they've put some staff on the ground. They opened up some offices over the weekend. They had about 150, 200 people at an office opening I was at in San Antonio. Just people who came out to support him and meet other Sanders supporters, learn about volunteer things that they can do in these next couple of weeks. And that's one thing that they're really looking at, is that volunteer network here and what it can get for them in Texas. And they believe that they just have a lot of solid support here.
All right. And so are there any other candidates that are doing a really good job that you're seeing there, establishing a presence in the state?
So Senator Warren was probably on the ground earliest in Texas and built out a team here. That was something that she did in many other states. She did it in Iowa, also did it in New Hampshire. We'll have to see how that pays dividends. That's another group of supporters who, some political strategists here say they're probably just watching a bit to see if she can bounce back in Nevada or in South Carolina. Mayor Pete Buttigieg has a couple dozen people here who just got here in the past couple of days. They also tout their network of volunteers. I met a lot of Buttigieg volunteers last night who said they are feeling incredibly energized after what they've seen in Iowa and New Hampshire, and they are glad to have some organizers here and some professionalization to that to be able to capitalize on what they feel is some changes in momentum. One supporter I talked to for Mayor Buttigieg said he's liked the mayor since last March, almost a year. But now he's just starting to get involved because he really does believe he can win, even if the mayor was always his favorite candidate. Others, Senator Amy Klobuchar has said they want to staff up in Super Tuesday states. Tom Steyer has a couple people here and open up an office in Houston. For some of those candidates, it will be about the momentum narrative. They just won't have the time and the resources to fully build out a huge operation, certainly one that can compete with Michael Bloomberg, and nobody's going to be able to out-advertise him here. So they're going to be relying on that momentum narrative, and it's a matter of whether some people who might be willing to vote for them will have already cast their vote for someone else in early voting.
All right. Adam Brewster in Houston, Texas. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a little warmer here than my last assignment.